experts were all proven wrong.
Do you see the message that you're sending?
Evidence the system is working.
We continue to expose the truth.
That is where the story begins. Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, along with Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, Katie Pavlich, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. We are waiting on the president's fake news awards as his relations with the press are more contentious than ever.
Mr. President, did you say that you want more people to come in from Norway? Did you say that you wanted more people to come in from Norway? Is that true, Mr. President?
Thank you very much. I want them to come in from everywhere. Thank you very much, everybody.
Just Caucasian or white countries, sir, or do you want people to come in from other parts of the world where there are people of color?
Thank you. Jim, thank you.
We're not sure what to expect, but something's planned, and we're going to keep an eye on that. Now, some members of the President Trump's own party are taking him to task for attacks on the press. John McCain wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post, and Jeff Flake delivered this rebuke on the Senate floor.
The enemy of the people was how the President of the United States called the free press in 2017. Mr. President, it is a testament to the condition of our democracy that our own president uses words infamously spoken by Joseph Stalin to describe his enemies. When a figure in power reflexively calls any press that doesn't suit him fake news, it is that person who should be the figure of suspicion, not the press. 2018 must be the year in which the truth takes a stand against power that would weaken it. Let us resolve to be allies of the truth and not partners in its destruction.
The White House had this to say about the senator's speech.
I found it quite interesting that he is coming out to attack this president, considering he's one that was recently defending an actually oppressive regime. He went to Cuba a few weeks ago and served as a mouthpiece for the oppressive Cuban government. He's not criticizing the president because he's against oppression. He's criticizing the president because he has terrible poll numbers. And he is, I think, looking for some attention.
Looking for some attention, Greg.
Yeah, I think the ultimate...
Can you relate?
Yes, I can. The ultimate joke by Donald Trump could be that the fake news awards is fake news, and it never happens, just as a nice practical joke. Here's the problem with Flake, and that I call that flake news, is that he's comparing a tyrant, Stalin, to the president of a republic. So it's a little bit different, I would say. It's dishonest, it's hyperbole. You can criticize the press in America. In fact, Flake kind of worried me when he said that the only objective truth was in the media, which is just nuts. If the media would admit its bias, then accusations of false news would actually fade. It's the biggest lie of all, denying that reporters are not clouded by their own confirmation bias. We know it. It happens here. It happens there. So you have no right to criticize anybody for criticizing the media, because it's not about lies. It's about shaping your story based on bias. And the other flaw in Flake's reasoning, and this is done for attention, Flake news, is that Trump is bad for the press. No one has ever been better for the press in the history. Yesterday's medical press conference, he wouldn't let the doctor go back inside till he answered every question. For 8 years, they were Obama-tose. You know, they were in a coma under Obama because they agreed with everything that Obama did. Because they can't stand Trump, they suddenly, I mean, Trump gave them a liver transplant. They're now alive and they're mad. No, they should be bowing before Trump for actually bringing them back to life. He really is like an organ transplant for the press.
It's so true. Okay, so he's revitalizing. So, Katie, what did you make of it?
Well, I would go off of Greg's point and say that the White House press corps has never been so interesting. I mean, we play live the briefings every single day, and the reporters who sit in that room who never used to get any kind of TV attention are now getting attention. But back to Jeff Flake's floor speech. The first thing is, if he's really so concerned about protecting the First Amendment, protecting the press, then why is he bowing out early instead of standing and fighting keeping his seat in Arizona and then taking it to the president in a position of power. Instead, he's rolling over and going to, doing this on his last stand. And what he said just wasn't true. He specifically said that this has never happened before. This kind of attack is unprecedented. Politicians, whether you're the president or Congress, have always had a precarious relationship. That's the whole point of having a free, independent press and a government that is held accountable. So they're always going to deal with this. We're going to see this for the next 3 years, definitely the next 7 if President Trump gets reelected. They need each other. Trump likes the attention, whether it's good or bad, and the press certainly likes the attention, especially those in the White House press corps.
Okay, Jess.
We'll just talk about Acosta for a second. I respect him, but he's a total drama queen. If a Republican correspondent had treated President Obama like that, he would have thrown him in Gitmo. That was very disrespectful. And Flake, a noble statesman, but just totally out of control. Stalin killed 20 million people. Trump, the only people he's been killing has been ISIS. And you can criticize, like you said, the press. It doesn't mean you're attacking the First Amendment. Fake news is the enemy of the Republican Party. President Trump's the only Republican that's actually said it. He's been incredibly open. He just did a 40-minute on-the-record interview with the New York Times at Mar-a-Lago, just walking by. Also did another on-the-record interview with the Wall Street Journal. Just spoke to Reuters for 45 minutes. His own doctor told us things we didn't really want to know for an hour in the press corps. It was incredibly transparent, and you juxtapose that to President Obama, who put more whistleblowers in jail than anybody else, prosecuted them, had Hillary Clinton tying up reporters in ropes. I remember that. Never even went on Fox News, was terrified. And I didn't hear a lot of people saying, oh, President Obama is encouraging other leaders across the globe to crack down. When President Obama was using the IRS to crack down on political opponents, I didn't hear Jeff Flake saying, oh, he's inspiring the world leaders to crack down on their political opponents. It's baloney.
Yeah. It's baloney that's apparently being cut by Republicans, because it's not only Jeff Flake, it's John McCain today on the op-ed page of the Washington Post saying that the president's rhetoric, the way that he talks about the press, the enemy of the American people, again picking up on what Flake said about that being Stalinistic language, is a threat to press freedoms not only in this country, but a bad example for people in the Philippines and other countries where, reporters face intimidation, harassment, and the truth is constantly being suppressed by autocratic
I thought Trump abdicated
leaders.
his leadership in the world. Isn't that what they were saying? Now all of a sudden he's leading other leaders to crack down on the press?
But wait, did those crackdowns start when Trump got elected, or?
No, I think Venezuela's been throwing reporters in jail.
What we're saying is that, in fact, the United States of America, a country with the First Amendment protections for the press, should not be giving any comfort or support to autocrats around the world who are seeking to suppress the press. But that's what this president is doing.
I mean, Trump's been pretty aggressive going after Venezuela, Iran, North Korea.
He's pretty aggressive.
He's really
in
cracking down
what
on the
was he doing?
regime.
Slamming CNN. Remember that one? Oh, I forgot about it. Oh,
by the way, that was a joke, and he didn't do it.
Okay.
First of all,
and then
it didn't happen. It was like a base of from the
I think he delighted in this. He delighted.
What's wrong with that?
So did we.
What's wrong with delighting in a joke? Are we in a period now where if you delight in a joke, somehow you're setting a bad example for other countries?
You're basically just a dictator.
Yeah, well, let me just say, how about this? Trump should get the Lifetime Achievement Award for fake news, right? What the birther movement? Obamacare is dead, right? Remember that? How about Obama is wiretapping Trump Tower? Remember that one?
Wasn't that actually proven true?
No, it's not true. How about this one? The biggest inaugural crowd ever. How about this one? Landslide. I won in a landslide. Biggest victory ever.
What about if you like your health care plan, you can keep it? Lie of the year.
Oh, yeah. How about 6%?
And if you like your doctor, you can keep it.
6% economic growth coming any minute, he says.
I'm looking. We're getting plus 3%, maybe 3 months in a row. The first time since 2005. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'm just saying, this guy makes up more stuff, and he should be crowned the fountainhead of fake news.
Maybe that's what he'll do, Juan. The fact is, you know what? We know what Trump is. He doesn't actually hide what Trump is. He's more see-through than the guy in Operation. The little dude, you can pull out the organs. You know everything what you get. And I don't even, America kind of accepts that. It's the media that doesn't accept.
You shouldn't accept it.
No. But the media doesn't accept a fundamental truth that we all know, that they are clouded by confirmation bias.
Right.
We see it everywhere. I will admit that it happens to me, but the media gets up in arms when you just point out the obvious fact. He's not saying the First Amendment sucks. He's saying that he's tired of stories being shaped by confirmation bias. That's all it is.
But everybody, you say there's confirmation bias, but you know what? There are people, there are working journalists who try to tell you exactly what's going on.
I like those really bad.
What does he do this very week when he lies about having said S-hole?
Yeah, but you know who makes good journalists who are doing good work, who are putting out the facts look really bad? People like Jim Acosta, who go into the Oval Office, ask a legitimate question about the kinds of people that President Trump wants to come here. He answers the question and says everybody.
Right.
And Jim Acosta follows up with a loaded racial question about only white people being able to come.
That's the point.
That is the problem.
That's a problem when, in fact, that's what people were thinking because
Trump answered the question.
And he asked a follow-up loaded question. Trump told him to get out, just like Obama would tell everyone to get out if they asked him that question. And then he follows up on Twitter as the victim and says, I never thought this would happen to me in America.
Yes.
It's so sad.
Yeah, and he said in America, as though there are other countries that are bad.
Right.
That might be assholes.
What are they called?
I don't know.
So here's the point, though, Katie. Jim Acosta, as a correspondent in the Oval Office, should be an adversarial force, questioning and skeptical of that president, no matter which president it is.
Should he be a non-biased?
Especially now when there's a Republican.
Adversarial forces when President Obama was president. You got questions, I remember. What's the most enchanting thing you find about being president?
You can ask silly questions of anybody, but you're saying to me you don't think that President Obama, who was excoriated by this network for Obamacare, got any...
he excoriated us all the time. Last week he was saying it.
I don't see that he got any easy treatment.
We can't blame us for Obamacare. He built that. So we're just telling it like it is, right?
I'm all for it.
You got to wonder, people that have escaped the USSR, when they hear, who are here now, or old enough to remember how bad it was there, when they hear somebody like Flake make that comparison. I've run into Russians who look at Trump as a symbol of capitalism. Something that actually works.
You've run into Russians?
I know, believe it or not. I married one.
Where's my lawyer?
I know. I don't know. I'll have to testify behind closed doors.
We disavow. Greg, you're on your own. Good luck.
All
right. Aww. President Trump wants illegal immigrants like this out of America now. Does anyone have an objection?
I wish I killed more of those. I will break up soon, and I will kill more.
Oh, my goodness. That accused cop killer never should have been in the country in the first place. His despicable outbursts in court next.
This program is...
Yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen confirmed her department seeking to charge sanctuary city leaders who refused to cooperate with federal deportation efforts. What just happened in a California courtroom may help her case. An illegal immigrant charged with killing 2 cops in the sanctuary state tells a judge he wishes he had killed more.
There was no need to put all these down when step out of the hallway. They're dead. I regret that. The only thing that I regret is the skill too. I wish I killed more of those.
Unbelievable, Kimberly.
Yeah.
Despicable human being, and looks like he had already been deported twice before he came back and shot dead these 2 deputies.
Yeah, this really makes the case, you know, for the president and what he's been saying in terms of cracking down on repeat offenders and recidivists that were deported, that weren't properly kept out of the country. They're allowed to come back in, and a revolving door to reoffend is a continual threat to, you know, public safety. And this is someone with no regard, you know, for human life, and in fact was quite boastful, as you see, you know, in the courtroom, taunting and saying that he's going to get out, he would kill more, and it's just it's terrible to see. I mean, what do you say to the family members of people like this that are just, you know, it's like 2 crimes committed against them. The person shouldn't have been here to begin with, and but for, you know, the gross malfeasance of these officials that don't, you know, enforce the law, their loved ones would be alive.
And some of these officials may be facing jail time if the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Secretary has her way, Greg. I think harboring or concealing illegal aliens in the country against federal law right here.
I know. Well, this shows you that citizens must deal with the criminals while the politicians get to deal with the cause. So they get to do these symbolic sanctuary cities, but they're not living in areas where they will be victimized. What you can do is, this has to be news. You have to focus on the consequences of these symbolic gestures to persuade citizens that their politicians are accountable, again, because politicians don't feel the effects. Arresting officials, however, is exactly what the officials would like, because it's a scripted Hollywood treatment with good versus evil. You have these defiant heroes protecting these innocent, illegal, undocumented immigrants.
Criminals, though.
But they were not. That's not how movies will portray it.
True.
And you will be the evil government agent, Jesse Waters, with the rifle coming in. So I'm not sure going in and arresting officials is the visual that you want. What you need to do is you need to do what liberals do, which is don't let any scandal go to waste. When you have a horrible crime and a horrible thing like that, that has to be everywhere. As a reminder, that's the consequence.
That reminds me, there was that image that was not the Hollywood image, but the woman in Kentucky, the clerk, who was refusing to enforce federal law on marriage. And I believe she was left in handcuffs as a result of that. What's the difference if you're disobeying federal immigration law or federal marriage law?
Excuse me, federal immigration law, right, exists, and then you have these states that have their own laws, right, and they have purposely challenged what they see as a negative, because they think, and the police chiefs have said this over and over again, this helps us to get more cooperation from people who are here illegally, keeps us safer. Contrary to what Greg said, these are typically in big cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. The officials live here, and they want safer cities. The police want safer cities. They want cooperation.
Totally.
The whole argument here is
the
so... No, let me just say, the whole argument here is so bogus.
Yeah.
This guy is reprehensible. He's a murderer.
But
he is no different than the guy who was shooting at people in Las Vegas, or the guy who was shooting...
Well, he is, because he shouldn't have been in the country.
So what? The fact
What do you mean,
is,
so what?
we have 10 or 12 million
Two cops
people...
are dead, Juan.
No. The fact that he's an illegal immigrant, this reminds me of the Kate Steinle case, where all of you sitting at this table were saying, oh, this guy's got it, he's so obviously guilty. When the case was heard, his immigration status was never introduced.
But if he wasn't there, it never would have happened, whether or not the
He came across the border 5 times. This guy came across twice.
Bravo, California. These are the kinds of guys that you are protecting. And the left has been very disingenuous when it comes to this debate about illegal immigration. They have claimed that Republicans in the Justice Department want to go into communities and rip apart families. These are the kinds of guys that they're targeting. And this is not an isolated incident. Cases like this are happening every single day, not just against cops, but against everyday families who have lost their children, who have lost their husbands, who have lost fathers to their kids. We see this all over the country, and yet it is ignored and pushed away as if it doesn't matter, because it could have been anybody doing this. It could have been prevented. We have an obligation to prevent it, and this Justice Department is doing that by going into these cities, going in with ICE and scooping all these people out, because these local governments are protecting guys like that you just saw, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
They go into 7-Elevens, and as I understand it, they're going to have a big sweep in San Francisco and all of California.
They're enforcing the law, Juan.
So going into 7-Elevens is getting this guy? I think the Obama administration said, let's get the criminals. But we don't have to treat all illegal immigrants.
The Obama administration released tens of thousands of illegal aliens with convictions of homicide, rape, and other violent offenses back onto the streets.
Let me say, he was
so
called,
don't tell me that they were interested in making sure that criminal aliens
I think that
weren't
was
on the
the priority, Katie.
It was not.
Called,
the facts show differently.
He was called the deporter-in-chief. He was deporting record numbers of criminals.
And releasing record numbers of criminals onto the streets of America. And in terms of the point you just brought up, deporter-in-chief meant people were caught at the border and they turned them right around. It doesn't mean they're going in with ICE and allowing them to take out these criminals in these communities. And if you talk to ICE agents on the ground doing the work, that is exactly what they will tell you.
All right. I'm going to stop there.
Someone call the doctor. The press corps has gone insane after President Trump's physician gave him a clean bill of health. CNN.
No.
Something out of the box. We hadn't seen it before. A White House doctor fielding questions for nearly an hour about the results of a president's physical. And that test included unprecedented cognitive exams at Mr. Trump's own request.
The president's overall health is excellent. All clinical data indicates that the president is currently very healthy and that he will remain so for the duration of his presidency. His cardiac performance during his physical exam was very good. Overall, he has very, very good health, excellent health. I'd say, based on his cardiac assessment, hands down, there's no question that he is in the excellent range. He's very healthy. So I had absolutely no concerns about his cognitive ability. That's why, I put out in the statement, that the president's health is excellent, because his overall health is excellent.
The president passed, obviously, with flying colors, but CNN's in-house doctor, not buying it. Sanjay Gupta didn't examine the president, obviously, but that hasn't stopped him from offering his own diagnosis.
President Trump had these tests that are actually looking for the presence of calcium in the blood vessels that lead to the heart. And steadily, up until just this past week when he had it performed again, those numbers have gone up. When they get to a certain range and his numbers in the 130s, that means he has heart disease. There's no question that, by all standards, by all metrics, any way a doctor or cardiologist would look at it, the president does have heart disease.
Wow. So that's what he says without having examined the president, Kimberly. So I'm going to ask you, because I know that you've made lots of men's hearts flutter. Do you think?
I didn't give him heart disease. I just broke the heart.
Okay.
Well, there was that one.
One time.
Anyway, how about our hero's heart? Is it in trouble?
Yeah, I think the president is going to be just fine. You could not have possibly expected to turn on CNN and hear them say anything flattering. Of course, they're going to jump to conclusions. I don't know why the good Dr. Gupta should say that, okay, he's got the heart disease. I mean, there's no evidence to suggest that. That is not what the president's doctor said. He's also not privy to all of the records and medical tests and results. But the bottom line is he went on there and he loses credibility when he makes a statement like that without any facts or evidence to support it. They call that fake medical news.
Oh.
How tall are you?
6. I'm going to say 2, but I'm actually 6'1".
Let's say 6'3", 239.
Okay.
But you don't look like Trump to me.
Thank you.
Where are you going with this?
Well, because online there has been, everybody now is putting up pictures of athletes, like Tim Tebow, 6'3", 230. Boy, they say he doesn't look anything like Donald Trump.
Ron, let me fill you in on a fact.
Yes, ma'am.
Muscle weighs more than fat.
Right.
So muscly people, like athletes, oftentimes weigh more than people who have more fat on their bodies.
They call that the girther movement.
Yes, that's what they're calling it, like the birther, girther.
I did a lot of aggressive reporting for this segment and called our in-house medical person, Dr. Mark Siegel, and he blasted Sanjay and said this: Sanjay's not a cardiologist or an internist. He's out of his depth. And he probably found this on Google. It's not medically accurate. It's unfair, and he's playing to a liberal audience. He does not have heart disease. Flat out.
Isn't there a very serious question
Dr. Siegel and I concur.
Dr. Siegel concurs with Kimberly. Dr. Guilfoyle.
Dr. Guilfoyle and Dr. Waters are in the house.
That's right.
But isn't there a serious question here about the ethics of medicine in this situation? I mean, the American Psychiatric Association has an ethics guideline about not diagnosing people mentally unless you have specifically sat down and evaluated them. And my concern is if they can question this about the president, they can question this about any average American and say, well, you're this, even though I've never talked to you, I've never actually examined you. And that's actually a very serious problem. But on a lighter note, the doctor was up there for so long, and I really think they should have put a time limit on it, because at the point that I'm getting details about colonoscopies and sedations and prostate issues, it's just too much for me. I don't need to know all of those details. So next time, let's just cut off the questions at 30.
But I do think, in defense of Gupta, didn't he cite numbers in terms of like his cholesterol?
Yeah, there's no
readings and the
defense. He didn't evaluate him, and the doctor who did said specifically that he didn't have heart disease.
So, Greg, you and I love food. Of course. Both big food guys. And so they were describing Trump's diet: 12 Diet Cokes a day. When he has a meal, he'll get 2 Big Macs, 2 of those, filet of fish. Yep. Filet of fish, and then finish it off with a chocolate shake. Now, is that...
Well, he's eating fish. That's
That was great. You're the best. Thanks. But Greg, what do you think? Do you think that you can be in good health?
He's not of this manorexic generation.
No.
He's an old school guy. You put a rump roast in front of him, he'll meet you on the other side. We know these people.
He'll add sauce to it.
But the point is, people are missing out on what CNN did. This is progress. Sanjay said that Donald Trump has heart disease. CNN is admitting that Donald Trump actually has a heart.
Oh,
this is major progress. But by the way, they do need an emergency quadruple bias bypass.
Ooh.
They need some cognitive dissonance stents inserted to relieve the pain. Give them like 6 weeks of brain rest, and then followed by 2 weeks of Fox News, and they'll all be fine.
You think that's it?
Greg.
By the way, Greg, you didn't mention the dentures.
He didn't have them.
That's right. The doctor says that
We did that
despite the
yesterday,
slip-up-
Juan.
No,
I think you have a memory issue.
I do. I might.
Dr.
Sanjay says you need a lobotomy.
We did that yesterday.
Dr. Waters will perform the lobotomy.
You know what would be a great little move for Donald Trump? Offer to pay for the same tests for the White House briefing room. Everybody does the cognitive and the physical tests, and they all have a little party and trade.
And then compare notes. Like
Yes.
Let's see Acosta's BMI.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, ahead.
my
Like you
A
said,
Greg-a-log
BMI.
on Hawaii's priorities following one of the biggest false alarms of the century. That's coming up. Stay with us.
The great
Crap out of millions of people. What has Hawaii chosen to do? Sue the FCC to block the rollback of net neutrality. Hawaii Attorney General Doug Chin said in a statement, big business must not be deciding what people in Hawaii can access on the internet. I don't know, Mr. Chin. Something tells me big business wouldn't have placed an incoming missile notification next to the friggin' light switch. And they wouldn't reassign just one worker. They'd reassign the entire staff to Siberia. But such are liberal priorities. It's not Saturday's catastrophe, but the speed at which citizens can get their cat videos. My theory, the Democrats have fallen in love with resisting Trump so much that they've forgotten that they're supposed to be working to make lives better, not worse. Let's review what else gets Democrats' attention. As the rest of us focus on cop killers, they hold us hostage over DACA. And while the economy charges ahead, they normalize socialism. And while they give citizens heart attacks, they go after the FCC. Yeah, did you hear about Sean Shields? He's a dad who nearly died from a massive coronary in Hawaii during that false alarm while he was talking to his kids. I'm sure he's thrilled Hawaii is going after the FCC in court. After that, they can talk to his lawyers, too. Hey, Kimberly.
Hey, Greg.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Just having a casual conversation here. This guy has he can sue Hawaii, right?
Well, there's people who have been talking about that and asking about it, on the internet, saying, is this something that they could have some legal responsibility, some kind of, penalty, fines, etc. He could bring some suit, or would they perhaps settle it with him? I think it might be tough, to do, but, obviously he can say it was caused, there was approximate causation, but then is he going to sue the city? Is he going to sue the state? He's going to try to sue the person that was working for him. He can sue Kim Jong-un. Is he going to try to sue President Trump if he watches CNN? It gets complicated. Yeah. So, obviously everybody feels so sorry for him because it's a horrible thing to have happened. It just goes to show the seriousness of the situation when something like this happens has, far-reaching and delicate, implications.
Jesse, this is really about priorities, skewed priorities.
It is. But Hawaii, I'm going to give it a pass because it's heaven on earth. They can afford a few strikes against them. I know. If it's not the false alarm, it's judges slapping down Trump initiatives. Yeah. Huge prostitution, a homeless problem in Hawaii. But that's fine. They're going to go tackle the wrong issues. Liberals do it all the time. They put refugees ahead of coal miners. They're trying to shut down the government over illegal aliens. Right. They always side with Black Lives Matter over police officers. That's fine. That's how they continue to lose elections.
Yeah. Juan, I saw you surprised, roll your eyes at Jesse. But this story, I will actually
never happened before.
Implicate the media in this. The Hawaii story, in my opinion, is a bit like the Vegas story, in that if there is no new news or spin or visuals, we treat it as over and we move on. I would say that everybody's guilty of doing the same thing.
Sure, but you think that
we should stick on this.
You should stick on this
until we find out what's changed and what can be done.
But I think there are congressional hearings that are going to be held on that.
That's not enough.
Not enough. You want want the hammer to come down.
I want the hammer to come down.
But you know what? I mean, it's interesting. I take something different away from this whole thing, which was there was no chaos, there was no breakdown in social order. In Hawaii, and this guy is the one person who said he had a health issue out of it. I don't think there were any deaths reported, but the key issue for me is, you look at something like this and you see that so many messages were sent by people that were legitimately frightened, thought their lives might be coming, and they sent messages that are quite touching to loved ones. But I don't want to overdraw the picture on one guy who said he had a heart. I don't know.
Well, what's the purpose of having this warning, right? Because it clearly could be a threat to Hawaii. There's a reason why they have the button to push saying there's a ballistic missile incoming. My issue is not only just there's no accountability for the guy who sent this out and then it took 40 minutes for them to rescind it. The other thing is if you look at the fallout of this, people didn't know what to do. There were no shelters to go to.
Right.
People were putting their kids in storm drains. So if there's going to be this option in the emergency response system of a ballistic missile warning, people should probably know how to react to that. And it was very clear that nobody knew where to go or what to do in that situation. And that, I think, is the bigger issue, considering we do live in a world where this maybe could happen in the future.
Because, and then they went online, Katie, and because net neutrality had been thwarted, they couldn't get the content.
They couldn't order
the direction.
So it's Trump's fault.
We have to look and check out if the parents remember to get their children back from the storm drains.
Yeah.
Like,
Mom, help me.
Mom, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Well, just a minute.
All right. Could California split in two? A declaration of independence there next.